Welcome to the IDP Guys podcast. This is going to be the Week 11 standings video. Tonight, my guest needs no introduction. I'm bringing on Axton Harding. Axton Harding is a ranker contributor for the IDP Guys. He now works with Gary Van Dyke and Jake Colhagen on the new segment Dirty O IDP Throwdown. It's hosted by IDP Pros and the Players Network. How you doing, Ax?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm ready to get in here and start talking ball. We've been talking a little ball leading up until this, but ready to get into it.
Heck yeah. This is going to be the first ever Axe Hunter podcast. Okay, and many more to come, I'm hoping. I'm really excited about this one. We got some smart mailbag comments. We got a great content IDP ranker in the house. So, like I said, let's feel free to jump in. You got an impressive resume, my friend.
I don't know about that. Not too extensive, but I do my best. I love this stuff, and I'm always looking to learn. So, you've been able to teach me, whether you know it or not, on a weekly basis, just listening to this stuff. So it's been fun to be on here. So I'm always looking to pick brains.
I'm glad to hear that, because that's how we get better. Okay, let me just give you some of the details of what we do over here for the audience too that's listening on Spotify. So my name is Steve Humgarter. My handle is the IDP Hunters. I am a fantasy writer over at the Fantasy Six Pack and IDP Guys. I'm also an ECR ranker over at Fantasy Pros. So that's gonna be what we base our scoring on when we talk about this video. We're going to be doing it based on the IDP ranking scoring system, which I'm going to show you guys on the screen here. So this is sort of what we're looking at, guys. When you see this scoring, solo tackles 1.5, assisted tackles 0.75, tackles for a loss 2 points, sacks are 4 points, interceptions 5. Forced fumbles 4, fumble recoveries 4, defensive touchdowns 6, safeties 2, pass defense 1.5, and so on. Axe, anything jump out to you in here that you see?
Passes defended are a little lower than what I typically play in my leagues. To keep safeties and defensive backs relevant, we're usually looking at like 3 or more points for a pass defended. I even throw some bonuses in for three or more. Not that I expect this to be that extensive, but that's just something that kind of stands out to me. The interceptions are 5, pass defended is 1.5.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. When I look at it, I kind of sit and I look at these tackles 1.5, and I look at the sacks at 4. Okay, just doing some quick math with you. 1.5 sacks, or I say 4 points, 4-point sacks. So let's look at, I guess the record on sacks in a season is TJ Watt with 22, right? So if I was to do 22 times 4, okay, that gets me 88 points, right? Let me do that, divide that by the tackle. Let's go 88 by 1.5. Okay, so 88 divided by 1.5, and that gets me 58 tackles on the year. So by context, let's look at this. Let's look at his scoring, okay? An average 2-down Joe Schmo, the linebacker, 58 tackles on the season, according to this, is equal to a guy that has a sack breakout season at 22 sacks. You see how this is overly inflated and it gears towards the tackle?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I noticed that too.
If I was drafted in this, I would definitely go linebacker heavy all day long and then look for some, high upside guys later. But for us today, yeah, I'm going to be looking at a lot of tackle. I'm looking for high sacks, or I'm looking for tackle savvy guys. So that's kind of where my thought process is whenever I look at that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so anyway, that's our scoring. If you've watched these before, and like I said, I'm an ECR ranker. Now I'm going to tell you, Axe, I was a little afraid to look at this week. I really was. I had some good hits, Boye Mafe being one of them, but I also had a big miss. I had Micah Parsons. I had him ranked as high as 3, and I know, looking in the mailbag, I know I'm going to get a little bit of fuss over that. And I think I have Kyle Duggar in the top 6 as well. So I was a little afraid to look at the leaderboard this week. But without further ado, I actually – hold on, where's it at there, buddy? I actually finished 4th. I finished 4th on the week. So that just goes to show you, if you're more right than wrong sometimes, you're going to still score well. So, yeah, I was 4th on the week. I missed by 1 point. And then season to date, which I'm pretty excited about, currently season to date – rest of the season, I thought, okay. So, yeah, season to date, I'm the number 2 ranker. So
whatever you're doing is working, man.
Whatever you're doing, it's going with it. Let's just keep doing it. But, yeah, I'm the number 2 ranker, and, it's pretty tight. If you know some of these names up here, it's pretty competitive stuff. And like I said, I'm just happy to be a part of this process. And I'm happy to show the audience what I do. So without further ado, you ready to kick it off? Let's get some defensive lineman rankings in.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
So awesome. So this is a kind of a chart. I did this last week too. I'm just showing you this to convey a point. From left to right, this is every team in the NFL. And these are the sacks they gave up. A poor offensive line usually generates sacks, right? Anything jump out to you?
Giants are heads and heels above the rest.
They are
54. They're almost 10 ahead of second and 20 ahead of third. The Jets are in third and have allowed 20 less sacks. That's insane.
I think where a lot of analysts fail, though, is they do the work, and I love to put graphics and slides because it tells a story, but that's not the only story. So if I was to look at this alone, I would tell you the Giants, Commanders, Jets are the worst offensive line. Start them all day, okay? That just shows us sacks. We don't know where those sacks are coming from. It could be blitzes, linebackers. It could be coming from anywhere. But it's a good ruler guide. It's a good gauge. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to take that metrics, and then I kind of wanted to pull it together and just look at specifically defensive ends, okay? So I'm looking at the defensive ends, and then I'm trying to look at these matchups, and that's kind of what I geared my rankings towards. I use a couple different metrics. The first metrics I use is I try to get a guy within a snap count of 60 to 80%. I figure if they're 3-down players, more likely than not, you'll see my rankings. They're all 3-down players, but more likely than not, they're there to make the play. I also look for guys that generate a lot of sacks, and if I can't get that, I'll generate tackles. But this week alone, when I pull these stats up, and for the people that are listening on Spotify, I just pulled a random stat sheet up of the New York Giants. They are, in fact, the worst team to the defensive end, followed by the Atlanta Falcons, followed by the Cleveland Browns, followed by the Jets, followed by the Commanders, the Bears, Lions, Titans, and Ravens are middle of the pack at 9. I'm not going to read you the whole list, but those are the 8 or 9 teams that I want to kind of focus on for the moment. I want to kind of focus on that, the Giants, Falcons, Browns, Jets, Commanders, Bears, Lions, and I'm just trying to create themes. I'm trying to see if in fact that these guys here are actually the worst teams in regards to bringing in sacks and putting my players in the best position. I just find stats like that fascinating. Now I'm going to show you.
I'm doing this. I do the same thing every week. I'm always filtering IDP points allowed by position, especially to make start-sit decisions. I mean, when I tend to draft heavy IDP in most of my leagues, so my benches are quite a bit more filled with IDP positions than they are offensive. I go a little thinner on the offensive side, but I like to make the decisions whenever I'm starting my IDP lineup. So I'm looking at this stuff and trying to decide, okay, who's going to have the better matchup here? Who's going to have the better matchup there? I mean, what teams are giving up what to, just trying to put my fantasy teams, like you said, in the best position to score the most points. So I love looking at that.
Let me ask you this. Who do you put? You got a lot of IDP players in your taxi, or you got more offensive guys?
Probably more IDP than I probably should have. My taxi is probably a little more balanced, but I generally have quite a bit of IDP.
My problem is I love players so much. Like I love their profiles and I love talking about them and so much. By the time they actually break out, it's like, do I still even have them on the team, So
yeah, more often than not.
But with the same theme of the sacks, because we kind of established the top 5 or 6 teams with the sack, right? For those listening on Spotify, I already said I think when you look at sacks, I'm on fantasy data. I'm on the fantasy what's the name of this? ProFootballReference.com. A lot of place to get cheap stats. You know, you see the same teams going on and on. But let's go over to hurries, okay? List kind of changes a little bit, don't it?
Yeah, it does.
I got you still got the Jets, Giants on there, but we got teams like Seahawks, Chiefs, Eagles. Okay.
Yeah, Chiefs especially being one that's at the bottom of the sacks allowed list. So it's surprising to see that they have so many hurries. But at the same time, Patrick is I mean, there's no comparison to his technique and how he gets, gets out of situations and uses his feet. In my opinion, he's one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the league. I mean, just the decisions that he makes, every decision he makes, it has a purpose. It's not just because, I got a 300-pound lineman on my ass, I got to run. He's got a plan with what he's doing and where he's going. So, it kind of makes sense, but it's surprising to see.
When you look at pressures, right, you just kind of hit it on the head. We have the same teams in that category. We have the Commanders, Giants, Jets. But look who appears. The Vikings, the Chiefs. The Browns are on the old list. The Texans appear. Carolina appears. Seahawks appear again. And you know what? A little bit farther down, the Bears type. So usual suspects, right? Except for the Broncos, Chiefs, and Vikings appear. So I think for all intents and purposes, I think we need to include them with our being mindful of defensive linemen, because they're going to have opportunities to press and they're going to have opportunities to hit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those teams that are allowing so many pressures and hurries are essentially making mistakes on the offensive line. And, although I was hyping up Patrick Mahomes, eventually, all of these pressures or hurries are going to get to him, and there's going to be some sacks land. So these teams that are getting pressured and hurried all the time just give these defensive lines more opportunity to finally hit home.
You're absolutely right. And for those that can't see my screen, we're identifying the worst lines, but also, like I said, the Chiefs and the Vikings, look at that, and Broncos, we threw them in there, right? Okay, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, they are letting a lot of pressure go to their quarterbacks. The difference is Mahomes is maneuverable. Josh Dobbs, maybe Kirk Cousins, they get out of the way of the play, right? Denver's on here too, which I find interesting. More on that in a moment. I'm going to show you a little bit more in regards to what I dug up on the Denver Broncos. But I'd like to get the list started here. And here are the first couple names on the list. Okay. Axe, how do you feel about these names? My tier 1, and I'm just going to go ahead and read you some statistics. Tier 1, I got number 1, Garrett, number 2, Watt, number 3, Crosby. Okay. Let me just read you a couple statistics that I got for Mr. Myles Garrett. Okay. First off, we already know he's in a bloodbath this week. It's a rivalry game. Okay. Next off, Myles Garrett has a 30% win rate. I don't know if you follow win-loss win rates. Usually the average is 8 to 12%. You have a good player. 15 or higher, you have a really good defensive lineman. This guy wins 30% of the time, and he's doubled 32% of the time. I say again, 30% of the time, and he's doubled 32% of the time. That's crazy.
That is crazy. I'd be curious to know his double team rate compared to last year with Zadarius Smith now on the other side. I'd be curious to compare the last couple of seasons and see how he's done, because he's been crushing it so far this year. And last year, I know he had a hell of a year too. So, it doesn't surprise me he's up there.
He has 12 tackles, tied for 51st. Assists, he's got 5. That's tied for 43rd. But again, most of these guys, you're making your money on the sacks. He's got 12. That's first. He's got forced fumbles at 41. Myles Garrett is killing it. I too would like to know what he did last. That might be an article we might need to write. What do you think?
There you go. Yeah. That would just kind of add a little more traction to maybe how effective having a good pass rusher on the other side can be. And I think when we get down to tier 2, we'll kind of dive into a little bit more of that with Nick Bosa, because he's one of those guys that's just getting tons and tons of pressure on the quarterback and he just hasn't been able to quite hit home. But now that he's got someone on the other side, we're kind of painting a little bit different picture.
I find myself with these guys, if I don't draft them their rookie year, I usually don't ever get them because I'm so, especially in scoring formats like this, I'm so linebacker heavy. I'm just filling all those guys in, and you can get linebackers anywhere. You can get them free agency. You can get 3 down guys. They're next man up, but these guys here are the elite cream of the crop. So kudos to you if you have them. Kudos to you if you have them. Number 2 on the list is TJ Watt, 21% win rate, double team 15% of the time. TJ's got 14 tackles on a season. That's 43rd ranked. Assists, he's 5. That's tied for 43rd. Sacks, 11. That's tied for 2nd place. Forced fumbles, 5th. Now, I don't know if I told you earlier, Axe, something I do when I'm comparing these stats, I do it by position. So when I say the guy is tied for 2nd in sacks, he's tied for 2nd in sacks by defensive end. I think that's relative.
Absolutely. Especially when you're going to rank by these positions. Yeah.
Yeah. If I said a guy had 47 tackles in the season, okay, whoop-de-doo. But if I say he's a cornerback and he's got 47 tackles, that's a bigger deal. So, that's why to me, it tells a cleaner picture of these guys when you kind of break it down. Like, here's another one. Here's Max Crosby, okay? 21% win rate, double team 22% of the time. It's another big stat. He gets there 1/4 of the time nearly, and he's doubled 1/4 of the time nearly.
I was just about to say that the fact that he's got the stats that he does and he's up so high on these rankings. And like we were saying earlier, he doesn't really have anybody on the opposite side. So the fact that he doesn't really have that help, but he's able to produce these stats just makes you wonder kind of where he would be if he did have an elite pass rusher off the other side.
So check this out. Tell me what stands out here. You ready? Solo tackles, 36, tied for 1st. Assist, 14th, tied for 1st. Sacks, 10th, tied for 4th. Forced fumbles, he's got 1, tied for 16th. Can't win them all, right? So what's interesting about him and the other 2 is he gets it on tackles and he gets it on sacks, So, it's kind of like neat kind of doing these rankings because you can kind of see where these guys pop and where they don't, But yeah, that's how I got tier 1. Not going to beat a dead horse. Garrett, Watt, Crosby. Do you see it any other way?
No, man. I haven't looked too closely at the matchups and how favorable they are, but they seem like a top three each week.
I mean, each week you can't really go wrong. You really can't. And something I kind of want to talk about here. The next guy on my list is Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter is simply short of amazing. A lot of people don't really know him. I don't know if it's the market there in Minnesota. I don't know what the deal is, but this guy's been consistently good. You know what it might be? It might be the fact that he's been hurt. That's what I think. I think it's the fact that he's been hurt all this time. With Hunter, you're going to see a lot of the guys in my tier 2, which, by the way, Hunter's 4, Parsons is 5, Bosa is 6, Hutchinson 7, 8 is Mafe, 9 is Allen, 10 is Reddick, 11 is Highsmith, right? But talking about Hunter specifically, when you see Hunter, okay, and just pulling up some of his stats there on the screen just to show you a little bit.
Yeah, I see.
He gets it with tackles. Him and Mafe are the only ones in this tier that get it with tackles. Usually with these guys, it's hit or miss. Either they're tackle heavy, like a Hubbard type, or they're sack heavy with a Hendrickson. This guy has a great floor. Either way, it's just so nice to see that in a player that he gets it both. Either way, you're getting points with him every single week.
Yep. Seems like oftentimes with these defensive ends, it's either you either get a sack and hardly any tackles, or you just get a bunch of tackles. And those guys that can kind of break that barrier and give you a little more consistency on both ends are the guys that you really want on your team. That consistency is what matters. You don't need to win your fantasy matchups by 100 points. You just need to win more than you lose. Exactly. And so that's where the consistency plays in. When you got guys that are able to get sacks on basically any given week, and when they don't, they're racking up tackles. That's a guy you can rely on week in and week out. And you're not playing these games of, will he pop or not?
So let me show you about consistency. He's got 28 solo tackles, tied for 4th. We just talked about his tackle rate. We got assist at 10, tied for 9th. Sacks, he's got 11. He's tied for second. Forced
He's
fumbles,
been leading
third.
that category. He's been leading sacks pretty well all year long.
Yes. And you know what? With those 11 sacks on the year, right? That was first in the league. And like I said, he's doing it. He also has, the most tackles for a loss with 14. That's kind of like a stat.
He's been leading that one too.
Mm-hmm. But there's a couple other things I want to look at with him. That we talked about the tackle floor. Okay, all of these edge defenders, like I said, they're usually hit or miss. He's great with the win pass rate too at 14.7. It's above average. It's not killing anybody like the rest of these guys on this list. But like I said, when you compare that to the average lineman, he's doing pretty darn well. Okay.
Absolutely.
You see the matchup this week. The matchup this week is against the Broncos. I want to show you something. Do you remember earlier? Can you see my screen?
I see Danielle Hunter still.
All right. How about now? Oh, wait, hold on. I got to add it. I sorry. So how about now?
No, you're good. I see it now. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to show you something. I thought this was kind of cool. Okay. When I pull up allowed pressures on a team. So we're going to go offense real quick. Just bear with me. There's a method to my madness. I'm going to pull up all the quarterbacks in the league. Okay. When you go to QB allowed pressures, look at all these guys. You have the usual suspects. Sam Howell, Commander, go figure, right? Zach Wilson, Jets, go figure. Jalen Hurts does it to himself, run around. Hey, Josh Dobbs is on here, isn't he?
Yep.
Vikings, Patrick Mahomes, Chiefs, Bryce Young, all those people on that list we were talking about earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, all these guys are getting hit at alarming rates, okay? What I want to show you, I'm in that 80 APDP. See this over here, this PR rate, these pressures? This is on the quarterback. This stat here alone means the quarterback's holding the ball way too darn long, okay? And this thing is telling. Look who we got at number 2.
Yeah, Russell Wilson right up there.
So see the APDP. You didn't see that earlier because it's 108, okay? It's bad, but it's not the worst. It's not like Sam Howell at 156. But look at this stat, and this is what I wanted to share with the audience. Russell Wilson get an alarming pressure rate of 108 all season, right? He is responsible for 27 of those, okay? If you take that away, 108 minus 27, the offensive line isn't that bad, is it?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Middle of the pack, okay? So what do we have here? And this is, thanks for allowing me to take that detour here, but what do we have here? We have a guy who likes to hold on to the ball way too long, and you have a defensive lineman that's going to get you either way. So little bit interesting. That's why I wanted to take a little time with Hunter. I have him a little higher, I think, this week than a lot of analysts do. I put him at 4. I'm more than okay. I am more than okay with that. But that's where I put Hunter. Any thoughts, any questions on Hunter?
No, I think you've got him pretty well respectable at a respectable place. So I think that's great.
Okay. Now, speaking of not respectable, I told you I whiffed on Parson this week, right? Okay. I gotta own it. A lot of people say you gotta have amnesia with this kind of stuff, right? And I'm getting these questions from the mailbag. You see it on my screen. And well, heck, let me get into Parsons. Solo tackles, he's got 16s, tied for 33rd. No one cares about this, right? Assists, 6, tied for 30th. No one cares. Sacks, 8, tied for 9th. Still nobody cares. Forced fumbles, got 1, tied for 16th. Okay? Raise your hand if you did what I did and whiffed on Parsons this week. I know I did. I had him high. I had him as high as 3. I had him high as 3. Apparently a lot of other analysts did too. Okay? But why did we do this? I don't know. Any thoughts? And I got called out for it. And sometimes you got to eat your chicken soup. Sometimes you got to just call it as it is. So here's the first question from the mailbag. ATZ writes, so what happened with Micah this weekend? Would have expected something with how the game went for the Cowboys. And again, you're right. He played a terrible Giants team. Okay, so what did happen? I actually thought this was a little sarcastic question, but it was kind of smart in a way. And it made me a better analyst because I wanted to actually look into this. So let's break this down. In the Giants game, Micah had 4 pressures. He also played off-ball linebacker more than he does. On 39 plays, he played off-ball linebacker 10 of them. Okay. Then there was a handful of plays where it did look like he was going to fake a pass rush, but instead he was just spying on DeVito, seeing what DeVito was going to do, kind of faking him out. The rest of the defense did rack up 5 sacks. So it's probably in part because of the attention Parsons is drawn from the other team. I guess look at him as a decoy, if you will, you know. This is how it sometimes goes, guys, in IDP. You know, you could plan like a fisherman. I say this one all the time, Max. You could plan for the great weather, and if you have a thunderstorm come in, you're not going to catch any fish. You know, so you got to kind of derive, you know, one player on a team. If the whole team is double teaming that one guy, I kind of think of Nick Bosa kind of like that too. You know, if you have a player that's getting double teamed all the time, regardless of the talent or the team game plans around him, you know, he's going to have weeks like this, and you just got to be mindful. You just got to be mindful of that. You expect that if you're playing Parsons.
Yep. I think Parsons is just one of those guys that is such a talented football player. The team can use him in so many ways as if he's just basically like a defensive Swiss Army knife. So I think when we're talking about in terms of fantasy production, it doesn't really bode well because he's not really in one specific place racking up a ton of stats on any given week. He's more just being in the right place at the right time to get the job done on any given play. He's more of your outstanding top of the line defensive player in real life. And I think people are just so ready and itching to get him to finally put some stats forward that we can really love in IDP like he was. I think it was, whether it wasn't last year or the year before in his rookie year. I mean, like I said, he's just kind of here and there and everywhere. He doesn't really play one spot on the field. He's just kind of floating around doing whatever the team needs him to do to get the job done.
I mean, and ain't that the truth? I mean, again, you know, I'm going back to high school football here, or, you know, even college. I mean, how often, more than not, the best player in the team is going to sacrifice it to the greater good of the team. So, yeah, if the Giants are spending all their assets on worrying about what Parsons doing, why I don't know, then of course everyone else is going to eat. So more power to it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if your defense, if your team, the Cowboys, know the quarterback is inexperienced, or the other team is really just going to be primarily focusing on Parsons because he's the biggest playmaker. Like, if you take your eyes off of him for a second, he will get a sack. So that's why offenses got to know where he is at all times. And if you move him around on the field, it's hard to anticipate what he's doing and if he's dropping into coverage, if he's going to rush the passer, you know what I mean? So they use it to their advantage, and it works well for the team.
And you know, that's a good transition to my next guy here. I wanted to introduce, you know, because I'm more than okay with Parsons at 5. 6, I got Nick Bosa. Now, here's something that's kind of interesting to me. When you look at Nick Bosa this season, okay, it kind of tells a little bit of a story. Let me just read it. Solo tackles 14, tied for 43rd. Okay. Assists 3, tied for 72. Sacks 6, tied for 22nd. Forced fumbles 1, tied for 16th. When you look at it, you're not that impressed. You're really not. However, I did predict the breakout last week because one thing Bosa does well, and this is kind of a funny story. I meant to tell you this earlier. So I'm on the if you guys listened last week, I'm on the Pro Football Reference, and you see how my screen says 2023 defense. Last week, I accidentally had 2022 up, and I told everybody. It was so funny. It was like I told everybody, oh, you know, Nick Bosa led the league in QB hits, and I felt bad about it. But you know what's funny? This just conveys my point all the more. Guess who leads the league in quarterback hits this year?
Yeah.
The same guy, Nick Bosa, at 21. In fact, he's going to break last year's stats. So it's kind of ironic. It came full circle. Yeah, I made the mistake, but the sentiment was still there. Nick Bosa is killing it with the quarterback hits. He's not quite getting there, but when he gets there, holy cow, is he getting there. And I'm going to tell you when to look for Mr. Bosa. Last week, the Jaguars, remember that pressure chart I showed you guys in the beginning? The Jaguars were doing that, much like the Chiefs, much like the Vikings and the Texans. They were giving up a whole lot of pressure, and Lawrence was getting out of it. You have a guy like this who's an animal, who Nick Bosa, by the way, 21% win rate, double team 26% of the time. You get a guy like this who's getting the QB hits. It's a winner all week, you know. So sometimes the stats kind of lie to us.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's where like that's a good point too. Is like a guy like Nick Bosa, you were saying, doesn't really have all the sexy stats, but when you kind of break it down a little bit more and you look at those quarterback hits, you look at the pressures, you look at the pass rush run rate, he's doing all the right things and he's winning on his pass rushes. He's getting back to the quarterback. He just doesn't quite finish it off with that sack. Since the 49ers signed Montez Sweat, is that right? No,
Chase Young.
Or it was Young, Chase Young. Jesus, one of the two. He's actually got somebody on the other side now to distract the offensive line. So, it's not like they can just keep an eye on Nick Bosa and they can let the other side kind of go. Nick Bosa has been getting the pressure. He's been getting there, but he hasn't quite been getting home until he finally got a pass rusher on the other side to keep offenses more aware of both ends of the defensive line. And now that he's got somebody to help him distract a little bit of that offensive line and just the movement within it, he's able to finally get that extra maybe half second that he needed to get to the quarterback. And it paid off in the first week, just having Chase Young on the field. So I anticipate that these numbers will finally start to transition more towards the actual stat categories instead of just plainly hiding in plain sight as just pressure rates and quarterback hits and everything like that. I think rest of the season, he's got a good outlook.
I couldn't have said it any better. Exactly. Yeah, the guy's been getting double teamed all year. The stats show it, and he's still getting there to the hit. He may be a second or two too late. Now he's got Chase Young on their side, and I don't know if the audience knows those two played in college together, so they know each other.
Didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a duo. It's a great duo there. So I expect good things, and I think they were both top picks too, like 1.2 whatever pick. So yeah, expect good things. The same vein, my next player on my list is Aiden Hutchinson. Same vein of a player. The stats: solo tackles 17, tied for 31st. Assists, he's got 2. Okay, tied for 94th. Okay, if you're playing him, you're just like the rest of these guys. You're hoping on a sack. He's got 4 of them. Okay, that's tied for 43rd. And then what's he have? Forced fumbles. He's got 1 forced fumble. Okay, so what do we know about Aiden? Okay, so I'm going to tell you what I know about Aiden. Last year as a rookie, he was the most double teamed player out of all the rookies that were coming out. They were laying on him thick. So he was getting that full-blown treatment to the NFL before he came in. So no NFL edge rusher faced more double teams last year than he did. He was the most double team player, period, let alone rookie. No more this year. They're kind of letting him go a little bit. And honestly, his numbers look, when I show you those stats, sometimes stats can lie to us. It looks pretty inconsistent as a pass rusher. But actually, you got to kind of expect that a little bit with younger players. They don't peak till they get older, like 26 or so if you're playing Dynasty. But he does lead the league in 35 pressures. Like Bosa got the hits, this man got the pressures. And actual PFF has him as a top 10 pass rusher, 90.2. He's just not quite getting there, much like Bosa before him. He just needs that big breakout game. He just needs to play one of these teams where he's going to get there. That's all he really needs. And again, 4, he's got 4 on the season. Who's to say he gets a 3-sack game coming up? And then, he bumps himself up in the rankings a little bit. But Hutch, any given week, I have him in 7. That may be a little low, but I mean, I'm waiting to see it. He's got the Bears this week. I can't stress that one enough. That's on our metrics, right? That's on our chart, right?
And Justin Fields comes back too. So those statistics are not necessarily skewed away from his play. They're still probably carrying most of the weight from his play. So, and something I just wanted to jump in with, especially while we're on the defensive ends, I'm not sure if you've mentioned it in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in your fantasy leagues when a sack is stacked in points, you're not just getting say 4 points for your sack. You're also getting that 1.5 for the tackle. And most often sacks happen behind the line. You're also getting that 1.5 for a tackle for loss. So for the listeners that may be more casual players, I've actually encountered this often enough with myself, just talking to your just to our subscribers in the IDP guys chat, just because there's guys throwing in their scoring. And I'm like, okay, so 11 points per sack. They're like, where the hell did you read that? Excuse my French. But, that because that doesn't read anywhere in their scoring. So, but that's knowledge that people don't really think about. Whenever you look at your players' performances after a game, go and look at it. You'll notice every time they have a sack, tackle for loss. There's some guys will have one tackle, a tackle for loss, a sack, and a quarterback hit. All that stuff is getting added up. And so your sacks aren't just plain worth the price tag that it shows up there. So, in case you might not have known before, it just kind of, when you go into your leagues, it pays to know your scoring and know the setup and stuff like that. It's because if the stack doesn't add up to a lucrative amount, then you may want to change your strategy and go, like you said, for a more tackle heavy team.
So, for this format, if you look at the scoring, they don't really have it, but
right.
And I told the audience, if you guys keep listening, keep turning, keep views, I'll do more of these. I have an actual idea for an episode upcoming. I want to do the top 3 different kinds of scoring formats. Mm-hmm. And you are correct, Axe, for especially sack heavy leagues. If I get 4 points a sack and then they give me a quarterback hit at 1 point, so that's 5 right now, right? Plus, you forget 2, the tackle for a loss. Let's say there's 2 there. So now my 5-point play comes 7 points. And then if you have yards on top of that, the average play is 7.5 yards lost in the NFL, 6 or 7. I can't remember how it is now. You add up all that stuff, you're looking at a 7-8 point play every time they get a sack. Yeah. So to your point, if I'm getting 1.5 points a tackle and I'm getting all that for a sack, this league becomes sack heavy. And you know what's neat about that? Some of these players I have ranked get moved down and some go up. Trey Hendrickson's a guy. He's a top 10 sack guy every week. And if he doesn't get that, he's in this, he's bottom 40,
Yeah.
Opposite of that, Wilkins. Christian Wilkins is a tackle-friendly defensive lineman. Doesn't get you that many sacks. So it's kind of interesting that you threw that in there. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that comment. That was actually a good comment for the listeners to hear there. Moving on to the list here, we got Boye Mafe, my man, Boye Mafe. Okay, he's a little bit different built than the rest of these guys on this list. He is one of our favorite breakouts. I hate to break the news to people. If you're hoping to pick him up on waivers this week, it's probably not happening. He's owned in 54% of leagues. 2 weeks ago, he was owned in like 14 or less, I've been beating that drum all year. Any thoughts on Mafe?
Oh, I've loved it in the last couple of weeks, man. I was able to get in on him before he really started showing out the last couple of weeks because I saw that, Uchenna Nwosu went down and then the Seahawks signed Leonard Williams for the defensive line. So it was more just like a shot in the dark at the time. It was just kind of one of those things you're just trying because every week I'm always looking to find the guy that's going to pop the next week. You know what I mean? I'm looking for, like you say, these pressure rates and things like that. And Mafe is one of those guys that always has a good pass rush win rate. He's got a good pressure rate. Although he doesn't get a lot of the snaps, most of the season, I think he's hovered around 40 or 50%. But, as of the last few weeks, that just lends well to good opportunity. Guys with great win rates and great pressure rates, when they get opportunity, chances are these guys have a great, even better chance or a boosted chance to pop off. So, I was just kind of looking at him and saw some of those great statistics and, it's just more or less crossing my fingers that Leonard Williams would be a good addition and actually help him versus take a position and hurt him. And luckily it paid off.
I don't know if you've seen that tweet I did a couple weeks ago. Week 1, no sacks. Week 2, injured. Week 3, sack. 2 QB hits. Week 4, sack. Week 5, bye. Can't fault him there. Week 6, sack. Week 7, sack. Week 8, sack. 4 QB hits. Fumble recovery. Week 9, a sack. Fumble recovery. So last week, week 10, we thought he was going to be a top 10 guy. Boy, were we right. 5 tackles, 1 sack again. That puts his total for the season with 22 tackles, tied for 9th. He's a tackle guy. I love it. Assists 3, tied for 72nd. He doesn't like to share his tackles, does he, Axe?
No, not at all. Which is good. I love those guys that get great solo tackles. I love the solo tackle. That's the thing I look at too when I'm going to pick guys up is their solo tackle rate. You know, it doesn't necessarily draw the line in whether I'm going to pick them up or not, but it definitely tells a little bit bigger story when you're looking at these guys. If you're getting a guy that's getting 5 tackles, but he's getting 4 of them as solo most games, I'd much rather have that guy than a guy that might get 7 or 8 tackles, but only 1 or 2 of them are solo. So, you know, that's where, like you said, the stats can lie to us, and guys that maybe are getting more, look like they're getting more tackles, aren't getting as many fantasy points because most of those tackles are coming from assists. They're tackling with other players. They're not getting most of these good, valuable plays. And
7 sacks in the season, and he didn't start until what, week 3? I mean, come on.
Like I said, he's been running on like sub 50% snap share all year. So, I mean, just the fact that he's able to do what he's done is very impressive.
Back to the same, hit or miss sack guys here. We got Josh Allen next. Solo tackle 17. He's tied for 31st. Assists 6, tied for 30th. Sacks 9, tied for 7th. Forced fumbles 2. He's kind of like, once the main guys are off the board, he's good to look at, right? The last 3 games, I was looking at his snap count because I was kind of curious. 79%, 82%, 80% snap count. That's great for these guys. Again, our metrics is between 60 and 80. He's hitting it. Okay. Yeah. And then he also has in the last 3 games 10 tackles, 2 sacks as well. He gets Tennessee this week. And what do we know about Tennessee? Well, I'll tell you what we know. They're a number 8 best matchup for this guy right here. So we got, to recap, we got Josh Allen, number 8 Tennessee, Hutchinson, number 6 Chicago, Crosby, number 3 Browns. Sign me up for any of that. And Mafe, number 10 the Rams. See what we did there? Now, my next guy in the list, he's usually in everybody's top 15 somewhere, and I can take it or leave it. It's Haason Reddick. He gets Kansas City, who gets the pressures, okay? If you have Reddick, well, hell, I'll let you look at this. I'll let you look at the numbers here. Solo tackles, 9. I got 9 tackles, tied for 73rd. Assist 3. He's only got that's tied for 72nd. If you own him, it's because of the sacks. He's got 8. He's tied for 9th. Forced fumbles, tied for 16th. So, again, he's not a Corvette. He's more like a Volkswagen. He'll get you home, Nothing exciting here. Just the idea is maybe when I'm this far down the list punting and I'm already on, number 10, Reddick, I'm looking for hopeful players. I'm looking for maybe there's a metric, maybe there's a wrinkle in my scoring system that I can kind of beat with. And that's what I'm looking for with guys like that. Any thoughts there?
No, I've got Haason Reddick in one of my leagues, and honest to God, this year's not been fun to play him with because he started out super slow, and I would set him, and then he got 3 games where he got a sack, so I put him in, and of course the next game he didn't get a sack, and then I set him on the bench for a few weeks, and he gets some sacks, so I'm scared to play him now.
I'm like that with him and this next guy, number 11. I got Alex Highsmith. Now Mitchell Heigl writes, and this was a smart comment too. Yes and no. Highsmith eats when TJ is double teamed. Yes and no. Let me show you something, Mitch, because I found this comment interesting. And like I said, when I see interesting comments, I think it makes our audience better. I think the whole audience could appreciate looking at a little bit of Alex Highsmith. You can see my screen, correct?
Yep. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. When I pull up Alex Highsmith, okay, when I pull up his snaps by position, yeah, he gets 61 as a D lineman, right? Okay, good. Okay, all right. Let me get a little more details on that, okay? All right. What do I know about Highsmith? I know that every single one of his snaps comes from that right linebacker position, okay? So let's break that down a little bit, okay? Mitch, and thanks for the comment. I know you've had a couple in here. I've been meaning to kind of go over some of these with you. So way to hang in there. We're going to talk about Highsmith, okay? Hold that thought. So Alex Highsmith, 17% win rate, okay? He's just outside the top 20, okay? Yeah, he's a little bit deeper than that. Let me show you his numbers. When you first look at this, you're probably going to think spotty, okay? Solo tackles, 18, tied for 27th. Assists, 12, tied for 5th. Sacks, 5, tied for 31st. Forced fumbles, 2, tied for 5th. Okay. So to the untrained eye, you may be thinking that. You may be thinking he's spotty. Maybe he's hit or miss. Maybe he only gets it when, when TJ's getting double teamed. But not necessarily true. His season looks respectable, but it's nothing to write home about. Here's the killer, though. Here's the thing. He's got 5 sacks, and he's got 2 forced fumbles. When you look even deeper into the metrics, look at what I'm showing you guys on the screen right now, okay? He's 14th among edge rushers with a passing grade of 87.6. He's got 24 hurries. He's a top 21 in the win-pass rate. But here's the killer, okay? He plays from that right linebacker position, okay? What do we know about that? What that means is, unlike TJ, who plays from the other side, right? Alex Highsmith faces the premier pass rusher on every single team. Every single week, he's getting that left tackle, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen the blind side. We know left tackle is usually the best player in the team. Got to protect the quarterback. Right hand's blind side, right? I don't got to go into all that. But anyway, he's getting a tougher matchup every single week, and he's still putting up stats. When that is put into perspective with this guy, his grade, his hurries, his win rate, his coverage, his stats, he is more valuable than the tape shows, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, granted, some weeks he eats, some weeks he doesn't, but every single week this guy's involved. This guy's involved, and stuff like that doesn't really get pointed out, especially on podcast shows, especially about fantasy football. So we're already on number 11 on the list, and I just wanted to commend Alex Highsmith, okay? Any thoughts there?
No, you pretty well said it all. All these guys in this or in the bottom half of the second tier and even the third tier are kind of guys that, at least right around Alex Highsmith, Reddick, and Josh Allen mainly are the guys that you can't help but keep up there in those top 10 because on any given week they could be a top 5 player. So, but then the next week they may drop out of the top 20. So, but at the same time, most of the time they're putting up respectable stats and having decent enough seasons that, there's going to be plenty of times you're going to be right, and there's going to be a few times you're going to be wrong, but you can't help but have these effective guys up there in the top.
When I'm this deep on the list, I'm kind of punting, and I'm kind of going against the stats, like Alex Highsmith, this next guy. Stats kind of are deceiving. My next guy is Jalen Phillips, okay? Doesn't look that great. Tackles 21, tied for 12th, assists 7, tied for 24, sacks 4, tied for 43rd. Stats lie here. But he passes the eye test for me. Jalen Phillips, when he's healthy and he's actually on the field, that defense looks so much better. Okay. Meanwhile, who's he get this week? He gets the Raiders. Okay. The Raiders didn't make our metrics, but let's be real. The Raiders might be 2-0 under that new head coach. And what's his name? Antonio Pierce. Okay. But the team has struggled to move the ball with that rookie quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. And that's who he's starting at quarterback. And for those reasons, bad defense, bad quarterback play, I think that this guy, even though he's not in the top elite, I think that he gets a nice matchup. I believe the Raiders are ranked 8th as far as fantasy points given up to an overall defense. So, when I'm this late in my rankings, I got to kind of have to daydream a little bit. And I kind of think of, well, how do these guys fit a scheme,
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, any of these guys, you're almost kind of playing matchups at that point too, because there's not as hard of a line to draw between these last eight guys or so. So they're more influential to those favorable matchups, and that's where you hit on maybe some guys that other people wouldn't, because you're a little bit more willing to take those chances and play those matchups, or look into things a little bit deeper, and you're not afraid to move these guys around.
And Kayvon Thibodeaux, the reason why he's so late here is he's hurt, and there's a questionable tag, so I don't even know if he's going to play. It sucks doing these podcasts so early in the week because we really don't know what's going to pan out. But the last time he played Washington, another great matchup, right?
Yeah, it was like top 3, top 5, yeah.
It was 5, yeah, it was 5. They bleed. They give up 37.10 to this position. Last time he played, he had 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 hurries. He's got 11 tackles on the season, 59th. He's got 7 assists, tied for 24th. Forced fumbles, 1, tied for 16th. But again, like a lot of these guys in this list, you're playing them because of those 9 sacks, which is tied for 7th. So that's why you have a Kayvon Thibodeaux in your lineup. And then my last 2, I'll just do these guys together. Aaron Donald, the Seahawks, Chris Jones with the Eagles. I never know what you're going to get with defensive tackles. You really don't.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those quarterbacks do what? You know. What do they do?
Most of what? Say that again.
I'm sorry, Donald and Jones. I'm doing them together just to convey a point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. they got a matchup this week at the defensive tackle position that's pretty sweet. They're going up against the Seahawks and the Eagles. What did we do earlier in the video? What do we know about those teams?
We know those teams are allowing a lot of pressures.
Yeah, and they run around with the ball way too much. So maybe a defensive tackle. Yeah. Maybe they can get in there. So, Aaron Donald, 20% win pass rush rate, double team 62 of that. Yeah, fresh coming off a bye week, gets Seattle who holds the ball. Solo tackles 22, tied for 15th, assists 8, tied for 25th. Sacks 6, tied for 3rd. He's probably going to get after it more than people think. Mm-hmm. I don't know where Donald ranks in most people's rankings, but I'm throwing him in there. And give me some Chris Jones against the Eagles. Again, Hurts wants to hold on to the ball, do some tush push. That's sack points. Jones's win rate's not that great, 15%. It's better than average, but he's double teamed 71%. See what I mean? Again, This is why we do this by position, because look at his sacks. He's got 7, tied for 2nd. But if I was to tell you the man has 5 tackles on a season, you'd roll your eyes at me. If I tell you got 5 tackles at the defense tackle, that might be kind of impressive. Okay, he's got 5 tackles. I understand. But he's in that classic 1-3 technique, so there's not a lot of movement there. But that's who I have in my rankings. I'm going to share with the audience. What I have. And any closing thoughts on these defensive ends and tackles?
No, I think you pretty well got him laid out there. Someone you got at 16. I like Matt Ibuki.
I almost put him in, but I'm just not sure.
He's got a great matchup this week from what I read earlier.
My gosh, yeah. He's most of the season he's been leading that team in hurries, sacks, pressures. Mm-hmm. I've been watching him, and I don't know if you watched the episode last week. Defensive tackle is great this year to stream. It's so great, and I gave a credit to a lot of that 2019 draft class with Ed Oliver and Justin Simmons, Quinn Williams, like all those guys coming in have really helped this class, has helped the NFL. But yeah, he's right up there in the list. I think I would take him after all those guys, but still, I'm looking for some sleepers in here. It really could be any guy. It could be anybody in here, especially Joey Bosa, the kind of games he's had. Don't sleep on Mac. Mac's got Green Bay. Green Bay has a good offensive line, but I did a couple episodes ago. They're suspect to me. They're in the middle of an ultimate test between defensive linemen. And don't forget Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson's in here. I got him in 23. So, there's some sleepers in here, guys. A lot of people, if you notice, I spend a lot of time on defensive linemen. I kind of like talking to them because a lot of people don't. A lot of people say it's hit or miss. No, it isn't. You're just not looking at the right things. You're not looking at the right scoring formats, what have you. You're just not looking at it. And it's fun. Defensive linemen are fun when you're right.
It is. It's just setting my lineups each week, trying to make these defensive line, just trying to play the right matchups and stuff. It's been really fun, and you get such a great feeling when you hit on one. You make a decision like I think we were talking about Boy Mafe earlier when I played him over Quinnen Williams a couple weeks back.
Oh, did you? Oh, that's great.
And seeing that hit was great. Luckily, either way, I don't think it would have cost me, but it just makes you feel good and makes you know, or lets you know that, whatever research you're doing is, it's working at least to some extent. So it's just all fun.
I'm going to move on to defensive backs. I don't do a whole lot here. Yeah, look at a matchup. You've heard me say before, I prefer a solo tackle guy than assist guy, because that tells me a lot. Maybe they're in a nickel dime, they're covering down. Maybe it's the scheme. I'm looking for a guy that gets me 90 to 100%. In fact, my top 20, that's all those guys. I don't want to take a chance, but I also don't spend a lot of time here because this is a volatile position. Every single year, and there's a guy at the end of this, and I'm going to get hit with another one of these mailbags. I know I am, in regards to this player. So yeah, it is quite interesting. My first three, my tier one. Well, heck, we can do tier one and tier two together. I got tier one, Derwin James. Tier two, Cameron Curl. I'm sorry, number three, Kyle Hamilton. Number four, Antoine Winfield. Number five, Cameron Bynum. Number six, Buda Baker. And, Minkah Fitzpatrick, that may be a little bit esque there, a little ballsy, a little bit. He's coming off an injury. I don't know what to expect. People are asking where you see him rest of the season. I think he'll be fine, but there's guys there that are making plays. Kazee and Neal are making plays too. I put him at 7. Again, with these guys, we just don't know until we know. But those are my top 7. Any thoughts on those guys?
No, I think it's pretty on par in my opinion. I would just note with Minkah, if you guys keep an eye on his practice participation throughout the week,
right.
Keanu Neal has been replacing him, and Keanu Neal's done very well in his as a replacement. But he's getting what you've alluded to and specified in the last several weeks. He's getting a lot of those box snaps. Over almost half of his snaps in general have just come from the box. So I think he's sliding down and playing some of that linebacker role. Just kind of a little quick tidbit of information for maybe waiver wires that haven't caught on to Keanu Neal yet. But that's really only good in best sense if Minkah Fitzpatrick misses the game.
James actually last week had 13 tackles, 8 solos. So that's exciting.
Derwin kind of been up and down lately, but you give him a good matchup, you can't help but put him up there in the top end.
It's so frustrating with these guys because you just don't know. It's a gamble, and then plus we don't know what the quarterback's going to throw to them. That's why I target tackles so much here. And Curl also had 10 tackles; he had 7 solos, so that's what I like to see. You'll see a pattern with the guys I have up top. Those are the guys making the big plays. Those are the guys that are out there destroying. Hamilton too. He recorded 8 tackles, 8 solos, interception. That was a beautiful thing and a touchdown Sunday. So, if I got him in here.
That's been just completely boom or just really kind of middle of the road. I think you've even noted in the past that he plays behind a couple of really good linebackers. So it's hard for him to really be a consistent player. But if you can find him on the right week.
So here's who I got in this next batch. Tell me if anybody jumps out to you. I got number 8, Kevin Byner. Number 9, Reed Blankenship. Number 10, Nate Hobbs. Number 11, Dax Hill. 12, Grant Delpit. 13, Hufanga. 14, Metellus. 15, Pittry. 16, Ford. I put him on the bubble, and there's a couple guys on my bubble. The Poyers, the Smiths, the Hookers. They're usually every week. But anybody in that tier 2 pop out to you?
That next tier, some of my favorites are in it. Reed Blankenship has been solid all year. One of those heavy tackle guys, even getting some pass deflections here and there. Nate Hobbs is always. Nate Hobbs was on pace for, over 170 tackles until he finally got hurt. So
when you look at Reed Blankenship, I put the stats up there. When you look at him, and a lot of people don't really pay attention to it, I guess. 100% of snaps all single year. Look at all them tackles he's getting. I'll go back to week 3, 7 tackles, 8 tackles, 7 tackles, 5 tackles, 8 tackles, 7 tackles. Week 1, 11 tackles. What more do you want? Every week but 1, he's had 6 or more, and he's gotten 100% of snaps every week except for 6. What more do you want out of that guy?
That's a great floor. And I'd be curious to see his solo tackle rate, just how much of those tackles, because he's been I don't have the most boosted scoring in most of my leagues, but I do know that he's been very serviceable even in the leagues that I only have to play, a single defensive back. So I know that a majority of those are coming on the solo tackle line.
Look at Byard as well. Byard is kind of interesting to me too. Okay. Byard just got to that team. I want to say he's been there 2 games now. Okay. And I really didn't want to get too froggy, but both these guys are in my top 15, right? I don't want to get too froggy because I wanted to see this play out. But if you look at the numbers, it hasn't really dropped off, has it?
It's been it's replicating kind of what Reed Blankenship is looking at, which is impressive considering obviously 2 safeties on the same team right next to each other in the rankings.
We'll go back 2 games before he came, and we'll go back 2 games after. So week 5 and 6, 100%, 100%. Week 8, 9, 100%, 100%. Okay, nothing changed. Week 5 and 6, 9 tackle, 10 tackle. Week 8, 9, 7 tackle, 9 tackle. So he's right there. I don't like lazy analytics, so I wanted to do a little bit more digging, and I kind of just wanted to see what he's been doing. And can you see my screen?
Yeah. You've got it broken down snaps by position.
Yeah, when you look at it, I was looking at what was he doing 5 and 6 when everybody wanted him. He was in the box quite a bit. Okay, he was in there 28, 27. Dipped down a little bit week 9, but look at week 8. Look at week 9, and they're on what, a bye in week 10, right? So look at week 9, 28. So he's back to playing that box role as much as he did. He's still doing the free thing, 25-20. Now he did 40 week 8, week 9, 31. So he's still the same player. They're still using him the same way. I'm always a little bit biased. I'm always a little bit nervous when a player changes teams halfway through the season. What role are they going to use him in, deep, whatever? They're using him the same way Tennessee did. And kudos to the Eagles organization. They just keep doing this, huh? They keep finding players out of nowhere, and they keep just bringing them in. So
and they have longevity for years. They ought to be a great defense for years to come. They got young guys that haven't even played yet that are outstanding.
So I got Byard at 8, Blankenship at 9. I put Hobbs at 10, which is a little bit, risky. But they're playing the Dolphins. They're going to be targeting. He's going to get points. He always does.
If he's not in the top 10 every week, he's flirting right around it. Just on tackles alone, man.
11, he'll, Delpit. Hell, they move him everywhere. It's so hard to kind of gauge him. So 13, Hufanga, which I've never been a huge Hufanga fan. I always put him at the back of the list. But last week he had 8 tackles, 5 were solos, an interception on that 34-3 win when they pounded the Jaguars. So good job there. Do you see the next guy on the list? I was trying to. Did you see my tweet? Did you see my tweet on Metellus?
Yeah. He's been getting all the snaps and putting it into two offenses.
What's funny is, for the audience at home, I went to NFL.com. I like this little sheet they have, and I think in an upcoming episode I'm going to show you guys my tools, because a lot of this stuff is free. A lot of it you could use. But you see how NFL.com does? They put the assists and solos, they put them together. So I'm looking at combined tackles, right? And I'm just looking at players, and I'm going down the list, and okay, there's a safety. Okay.
You have to show us what you're looking at, Steve.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I get a little carried away with these these stats from time to time.
You're all good.
Anyway, there it is. So thanks for pointing it out. But anyway, I'm on NFL.com, and it kind of shows me by position what players got the most combines, right? And I'm going down the line, and Bynum is the top. We all know this by now. Everybody knows Bynum's the top player, but a lot of people don't know the 6th best defensive back right now as far as combines when you add them all up. Okay, he's only got 25 solos but 31 assists. When you add them all up, 67 combined tackles is Josh Metellus. For that alone, I'm putting him on my list. He's getting targeted, he's getting hits, he's getting the snaps. That's what I look for, especially in this scoring kind of format. I'm looking for players like him. He's very sneaky. Here's what kills me, Axe, and this is my tweet. He's got more combined tackles than Derwin James, Dax Hill. Who else did I say? Delpit. All these big-time players that went in drafts. This guy wasn't even drafted, So it just goes to show you this position's a bit of a mess. You can get players all over the place, so don't stress it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, big fan here of dude. Yeah, for real. So my last guy on the list, and I'm just gonna end it on him. My last guy here is Jalen Petrie, excuse me. And I got a comment from the mailbag, and they were asking me any thoughts on Jalen Petrie. Curious if it was a concern. I thought this was an excellent question too. I really did, because if you remember last year, this guy was knocking it out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us predicted that to be him to be a bust this year a little bit, because he, even when he was doing that, he had a big missed tackle rate. He really did. John Macri over there at PFF, he actually put this as a tweet. Last week, Pitre played 72% deep and only 9% in the box. That should tell you something. You know, also, let's consider last year's team. They didn't have the linebacker core they have now. They have not one, not two, but they actually have three guys that are soaking up the tackles over Pitre. So don't expect a whole lot there. But, you know, if you're asking me what happened, nothing happened. He was on the field 100% snaps. He blitzed a few times. He just didn't get there. Okay? He's the one guy, you know, he's known for missing tackles. But I would say this is more of a cautionary tale. This is why we wait on players like this. Okay? Pitre coming down and being another DB, that's no surprise. And it shouldn't be to us analysts as well. Okay? There's only one DB in like the last, I guess, 4 straight years that's actually been consistent every single year. And it's not even Derwin James because he gets hurt. It's Budda Baker. Budda Baker's been the only consistent guy. And to be honest, that might not even be a lock this year. So just be mindful when we're crowning defensive backs. And the worst thing you can do in your leagues, you know, again, I should say, hey, watch your scoring. But the worst thing you can do in your leagues is probably take those guys early, not because they're bad, not because of scoring, but just because of the volatility of that position.
Yeah, most of the top guys have come from the waiver wire in most of your leagues this year. So I think with defensive back, it's more of a thing where you just got to kind of ride the wave while it comes. And then after the wave, you hop off and get rid of them to somebody else, you know, like a Pitre would have been a good sell at the end of last year. Just knowing that this team is going to come draft help on the defensive side of the ball. And naturally, you know, Will Anderson off the edge and, you know, adding some of these new linebackers and stuff is kind of taken away from the production that could essentially go to Jalen Pitre like it was last year when they were really hurting.
I'm showing the audience my full rankings in case they want to go. Now, don't sleep on Ford. I kind of want to move Ford up a little bit. You know, Ford's a good player too. I'll tell you who I'm moving down the more I think about it, Marquise Bell. If you guys have noticed, Rashad Evans is there. He's been getting a couple snaps here and there, which is exciting to see. So just be mindful of that when you're talking defensive backs. When you're talking players, they're I'm up, I see me, they're down, they come, they go. You can literally, most leagues, and I play in a lot of deeper formats. You can literally, in most formats, you could punt defensive back position, and each week I can stream it. And you know what? Even if you tell me I can't get a safe, whatever, I can still stream. I can still stream at the very least. I can stream a cornerback.
Oh, yeah. No. I mean, I don't know if you know Johnny the Greek. He's got the cornerback corner. He puts out every week, and the guy's got about a 75% hit rate.
Great dude. I have talked to him. You know, I've talked to him in chats before. I've talked to him. He's a great dude. And you know what? He's incredibly accurate. I read a report. He's like 89% accurate on cornerback.
Yeah, I think I remember just listening to him a couple of weeks back, and you said that he was at like 70-some%. I think he rolls 70+% accuracy every year. So I could even, you know, a couple of things that I know just listening to his podcast that he says pay attention to is you want these. You want matchups for cornerbacks against offenses that have successful passing offenses. Yeah. And not just offenses that are passing the ball a lot, because there's teams out there that throw the ball 30+ times but aren't completing but 15, sub-20 passes a game. You want those teams that are completing 20, 25+ passes every game, because more completed passes is more chance for tackles. And that's kind of leans into one of your criteria for defensive backs, as you say each week, is you want those guys that are getting targeted. You rip off your defensive backs each week, and you talk about guys that have had the ball thrown at them, how many completed passes and stuff like that, because essentially those completed passes are leading to these solo tackles combined. You know, they're just leading to more opportunity for those defensive backs.
So again, like Axe is saying, look at your scoring format, because like if I'm on a high impact, high upside, big scoring leagues, yeah, Kyle Hamilton would have did me well this week. When you look at my rankings sometimes, and that's why it's a lot of contradictory based on your setup, I'm looking at guys like Blackman, Bynum, Metellus. There's nothing exciting there, right? But what do they do for me? They're there in the bubble. They're hanging out. They're going to get those tackles. They're going to get me them garbage points. We call them garbage points. In this format, it's 1.5 points each time. Each time they take it, they get me a point. So yeah, I covet those guys. But again, know your scoring format, and we're trying to game the fantasy pros. So that's why I go after the players I do. And on that note, too, I'm going to transition to linebacker, our final category. Any closing thoughts there, X?
No, I think we pretty well covered a lot of good information on the defensive backs.
Gotcha. So what I did here is I kind of pulled. I was looking at it. These are the 2023 IDP points allowed, for linebackers. Okay. I looked at some other sites. And they gave me some good numbers. They gave me some stuff like, okay, here's Yahoo. I'll show you this one too. Can you see my screen?
You may have to do something on that. I'm just seeing the points allowed by position.
Gotcha. So when I do
there we go.
When I do Yahoo, right? They have the worst defenses, and they have it broke down. They have the Giants, the Patriots, they have the Bears, the Jets, the Browns, right? But what I wanted to do here, I wanted to kind of, just like we did with defensive linemen, I wanted to key in on those. Okay, I know the defenses are bad, but maybe they got a good linebacker core. Maybe they're just getting dunked on. Maybe they're just getting passed on. The Raiders are in it. The Broncos are in it. So what I kind of wanted to do is I kind of want to take these stats, the points against. What I kind of wanted to do is I kind of want to look at it a little deeper. Again, I didn't want to do lazy analytics. I kind of wanted to look at this a little bit deeper. And that's where my sheet comes from. What I ended up doing is I ended up pulling by position, linebacker by position, the most points that these teams give up. So the Giants are still there at number 1. So we should be mindful of the Giants who's playing. Falcons are number 2. The Browns are number 3. The Jets are 4th. The Commanders are 5. And why the top 5 are important to me, 39, 38, 37, 37, they're only separated by a point or two. So any single one of those, the numbers tell me right there, any single one of those teams, it's a good linebacker matchup if I see it. And then going down a little bit more, it's still good. A couple points less is the Bears. Okay. The Lions at 7 is interesting to me because if you remember last year, they were the worst team. They were god-awful. They were god-awful at the linebacker. They're still bad. They're 7th best matchup, but I'll take it. They're getting better, but it's bad. And then the Titans, of course, you can always pick on the Titans. And surprisingly, the Ravens are on here, and the Rams at 10. But those are kind of what I'm looking at. I'm kind of looking at the worst teams, and I'm kind of looking at where am I going with this? The worst teams, and also I'm looking at linebacker in general. What are your snaps each week? That's another big one for me. What are your snaps this week? Okay, 100% is the benchmark. We want 100% linebackers, right? But also we want volume. Just because you get 100% and you're playing, 29 snaps, that's no big deal to me. I want the teams that are on the field a lot. That's my criteria there. I kind of want that. And I'm looking for guys. I'll take solos. I'll take assists, but I get double the points if I get a solo over assist. So that's kind of how I do my rankings. I kind of base it on snaps, volume, matchups, and then what are they actually as a player, Yeah. So absolutely. With that in mind, go ahead.
Oh no, I was agreeing with you. I will touch on. You mentioned the Lions being kind of surprising there. As last year they didn't allow many points to the linebacker position. I almost want to kind of throw that to maybe the change in the running back over the last year. I think last year most of the time when they ran the ball, it was on the goal line. Or it was just 3rd and 1s. Short running plays. And because DeAndre Swift wasn't very successful as a pass catcher coming out of the back, and Jamal Williams wasn't known to break off for big runs, just punch it in the end zone or get you a yard. Well, this year now you're looking at Montgomery getting 100-plus yards a game. You're looking at a lot more successful rushing offense. And if you notice, it's kind of the trend with a lot of these teams in the top end. Just whether or not they have a great offensive line, they have generally have great running backs that even with a subpar offensive line, they're able to still punch the ball a few yards down the field and reach that second layer of the defense.
So my first two guys, same tier, and it's no surprise. Olakun and Roquan Smith. So Olakun, solo tackles 77, that's third.
You want to throw
22.
your list up for me?
Oh, okay. What I say, assist 22, that's 14th. Okay. My list, is it up there? There you go. Okay. So thank you. Assist 22, 14th. Interceptions first. He's got one. He's tied for 7th. Forced fumbles, 1, tied for 9th. What makes these guys who they are is their snap counts. I mean, he had 100%. I go back the last 3 games just to tell a little bit of a story. So 100% with 77 plays. That's pretty darn good. Week 2, a little bit of a dip, 92%, only 45 plays on the field. Okay. 100%, we'll forgive him. 100% with 78. This guy here is the linchpin in his defense. He makes everyone else around him better. Just like Roquan Smith, 74 tackles. That's 4th. Assists, 35, tied for 1st. You know, he doesn't do much other than that for you, but 77 plays with 100%. Okay? 92% the next week. And then the following week, 100 with 78. Both of these guys are very similar. Both of these guys are very similar in the way they go about their business. I put another guy in this category, and again, he's got tape that matches his stats, and that's TJ Edwards. TJ Edwards, to me, is right there with these guys. He just maybe doesn't have the name recognition yet. Solo tackles, he's got 79. That's tied for 2nd. Kudos for whoever picked him up in the offseason, okay? He's got a great matchup in Detroit. I just showed you that, right? He's got a great matchup in Detroit. 43.30 points a game they give up at that position. Now, here's something I wanted to point out, too. For assists, he's pretty good, too. He's got 26, tied for 7th. So what does he do? He helps out his teammates, and then he gets his own. And you know that situation there, it's been kind of up and down. Been up and down with the injuries. So he's a player there, and he's right there with these other 2 guys with snap counts. He's at 64 volumes, that's 93%. 63, he got the following week 100, 60 at 100. This guy does everything, and he does it very quietly for his team.
Yeah, he does. TJ Edwards he's been very reliable this year. I would almost say he's probably right around a 10 tackle average.
Even with the Eagles, he was good. And, like, he never gets the respect he deserves. Kind of the polar opposite is my number 4, Bobby Wagner. He gets all the respect he deserves. He's just older. And, you know, he has those up and down weeks like I've said about him before. But you know what? He really shines. He might not look that great on tape sometimes. Sometimes you'll see him get beat. But his stats, he knows how to put up stats. 67 solos on the season. That's 6th ranked. Assists, he's got 25, tied for 10th. He doesn't get you much more than that, but he doesn't really have to. He's making those plays. They may be a couple of yards down the field, but he's making those plays. For us in IDP, that's all we want. And Old Man Wagner is getting volume. We talked about the 100%. He's got 78 the last 3 games, 78 plays. The next week, 86% snaps, 65. So, again, that's misleading. You look at 86, you're like, okay, he's still got 65 there. And then the next week, 100% snaps, that's 61. So you're getting a player every single week that's in position to make tackles. I don't know what more you can ask for with your linebacker core.
Yeah, he's seeing a full game's worth of plays, even though he's not getting 100% of the snaps. Most of the time he's getting right up there around 100, but you know, like you just said, man, he's whether he's getting 100% or not, he's still getting about a full game's worth of plays on any given week.
Yeah, and you see the method here. The guy doesn't have to be like a Ray Lewis. He just needs to be, I guess the best ability is availability, right? So he doesn't have to be like, you know, a killer name as long as he's in the position to make the plays. And that's just like my next player. My next player is Azeez Al-Shaairi, the next one down at 5, okay? The cool thing about him is just like these other guys, he does a lot of the things in between the tackles, in between where people aren't looking. he's always getting 60% or more of the snaps. Let's take a look at that. Solo tackles 59, tied for 12th. Assists 25, that's tied for 10th. Interceptions for it doesn't really do much for you there. But look at his snap counts. Jeez. I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's take a detour. Let's go over to the IDP guys page here.
You have to pop it up here for me.
Yeah, hold on a second. So we're going to go actually, okay, it came up. Good, good, good. Okay, so we're going to go to the IDP guys page here. And hold on a second here. So you're going to let me, oh, you know what? It timed out on me. Okay, let me take a little detour on that and get back in there. Sorry about that. But yeah, so on the IDP guys, we're actually running a promo right now. While I'm doing that, let me just show you guys. They're doing starting on November 19th, their subscriptions are now 50% off. So it's a good chance to go ahead and maybe get some of these assets for your leagues. If you want that premium content, we have it for you. It's available. Here we go. Let me go ahead and pull this back up. All right. So I know you see the screen, right? Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Tools. I'm going to go to snap count because I just want to show you some of the neat features we have. We have teams, points available by position. We have snap count. So I'm just going to show you guys what I'm looking at over here. And again, this is all available with subscribers and you know, some of you guys, if you come on and you see our premium content, I'm in the Discord, Axe is in the Discord. There's a lot more stuff than just rankings. We got sit starts, just basic conversations with like-minded people. But anyway, here